Another day, another story. In 1949, a group of nations signed a treaty to form the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, commonly known as NATO. In the 4 years since World War II had ended, Western and Eastern Europe had become divided by the Cold War.
Welcome to Tabo Eminent Channel.
The treaty between the United States, Canada and 10 Western European nations called on the signatories to offer military support to each other if any one of the member countries was attacked. Since its inception, NATO's membership has grown to 31 countries and expanded into Eastern European nations. Here are some important episodes in the organization's history. 1. NATO's military buildup began during the Korean War. NATO's first phase of large-scale military organization wasn't directly related to any threat against its 12 member countries. Instead, it stemmed from a proxy war with the Soviet Union in which the United States and other NATO members felt entitled to intervene. Amidst the smoldering ruins of the Korean War, a silent but potent shift was taking place in the geopolitical landscape. It was a time of uncertainty and tension, and the world powers were acutely aware of the need to bolster their defenses. As the conflict raged on the Korean peninsula, the nations that would later form the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, quietly laid the foundations for a military buildup that would shape the course of history. In the aftermath of World War II, Europe was still reeling from the devastation, and the specter of communism was spreading its influence across the continent. The Korean War, which began in 1950, was seen as a microcosm of the larger global struggle between the democratic West and the communist East. NATO, a collective defense alliance formed in 1949, was initially established as a response to the Soviet Union's expansionist tendencies and the potential threat it posed to Western Europe. However, it was during the Korean War that the alliance truly began to solidify its military capabilities. The conflict in Korea underscored the importance of a strong and united front against potential aggression. The nations within NATO recognized that a coordinated and well-equipped defense was crucial to maintaining their sovereignty and deterring any further advances by the communist bloc. The military buildup began with a renewed focus on defense spending and the modernization of armed forces. Member countries of NATO started to invest heavily in their military infrastructure, technology, and personnel. The Korean War served as a sobering reminder of the need to be prepared for any eventuality. Joint military exercises became more frequent and elaborate, enhancing interoperability among NATO members. The lessons learned from the Korean War highlighted the importance of seamless coordination and communication among Allied forces. As a result, NATO began to develop standardized procedures and strategies that would allow for swift and effective responses to potential threats. Perhaps most significantly, the Korean War led to the establishment of the Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe, SHAPE, a military command structure under NATO. SHAPE's role was to plan and coordinate defense strategies in the event of an armed conflict, ensuring that NATO forces would be ready to defend against any aggression. As the Korean War eventually came to an uneasy armistice in 1953, the legacy of NATO's military buildup endured. The alliance had transformed itself from a loose coalition of nations into a robust and integrated defense network. The lessons learned from the Korean War served as a catalyst for continued cooperation and preparedness, ultimately shaping NATO's role in the decades to come. In the annals of history, the Korean War is often overshadowed by larger conflicts, but its impact on NATO's evolution cannot be underestimated. From the smoldering embers of the war-torn Korean peninsula arose a stronger and more united NATO, poised to safeguard the values of democracy and collective security in a rapidly changing world. After World War II, the Allied nations divided the Korean peninsula along the 38th parallel, leading to the development of a Soviet-aligned government in the north and an American-aligned government in the south. In 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea, sparking the Korea War. The United States and other NATO members individually sent troops to fight North Korea. Meanwhile, NATO began to assemble and organize its military infrastructure under the assumption that it would need to fight against future attacks from the Soviet Union and its allies. NATO established a military headquarters known as Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe, SHAPE, appointing the Allied Forces Supreme Commander Dwight D. Eisenhower to lead it. In addition, NATO established a long-term defense plan and conducted its first large-scale naval exercise. By the time the Korean War formally ended in 1953, NATO had established a significant international military presence.
2. West Germany joining NATO helped trigger the Warsaw Pact.
The original 12 countries that formed NATO in 1949 included Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, the United Kingdom and the United States. In 1952, NATO gained 2 new members, Greece and Turkey. Then, in 1955, NATO allowed West Germany to join its ranks. After World War II, the Allies divided Nazi Germany and began a disarmament program to prevent future German military aggression. West Germany allied itself with the United States and many of the other NATO countries, while East Germany allied itself with the Soviet Union. However, in 1955, West Germany joined NATO and began to rearm itself. The Soviet Union was not happy. Less than 2 weeks after West Germany officially joined NATO, the Soviets and 7 other countries in Eastern Europe signed the Warsaw Pact. Like the 1949 North Atlantic Treaty that established NATO, the Warsaw Pact called on all its signatories to defend each other in case of attack. Along with the Soviet Union, the pact included Albania, Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, East Germany, Hungary, Poland and Romania. 3. France withdrew military support from NATO for over 40 years. NATO is a political as well as a military organization. However, in 1966, one of NATO's founding members, France, decided to withdraw from its military commitments to NATO. The French president who made this decision was Charles de Gaulle, the famous brigadier general who had helped liberate Nazi-occupied France and establish an interim government immediately after the Germans retreated. Even though France had played an important role during NATO's early years, de Gaulle had grown unhappy with France's position in the organization and clashed with other member states. In addition, he wanted to establish French military independence. France didn't rejoin NATO until 2009, under President Nicolas Sarkozy. By that time, a lot had changed. The Vietnam War and the Cold War had ended. 9/11 had happened and the US was several years into its wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. 4. NATO invoked its Article 5 military commitment for first time after 9/11. NATO established a robust military presence during the Cold War, with Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty calling for collective defense. However, NATO never officially invoked the article during the Cold War. In fact, the first time NATO ever invoked Article 5 was in the wake of the September 11th attacks on the United States in 2001. That October, NATO launched its first anti-terror operation, in which multiple NATO countries assisted in patrolling the airspace over the United States. By this time, NATO had gained 4 more members. Spain joined in 1982, and the Czech Republic, Hungary and Poland joined in 1999. Significantly, the last 3 states were former members of the Warsaw Pact, which ended in 1991. 5. After Cold War, former Warsaw Pact states joined NATO. The reunification of East and West Germany and the dissolution of the Soviet Union signaled the end of the Cold War. Over the next 3 decades, former members of the Warsaw Pact began to pile into NATO. East Germany became the first former Soviet ally to technically join when it reunited with West Germany, which was already a member. In addition to the Czech Republic, Hungary and Poland in 1999, NATO gained the former Warsaw states of Bulgaria, Romania and Slovakia, previously part of Czechoslovakia with the Czech Republic, in 2004. Albania, which withdrew from the Warsaw Pact in 1968, joined NATO in 2009. Subsequent years saw the integration of more former Warsaw Pact states into NATO's fold. Bulgaria, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, Slovakia, and Slovenia joined the alliance in the following decade, further solidifying NATO's role as a defender of freedom and stability across the continent. The journey from the aftermath of the Cold War to NATO membership was a story of resilience, determination, and the pursuit of a brighter future. The former Warsaw Pact states, once overshadowed by the specter of Soviet influence, emerged as proud and equal partners within NATO, contributing to the collective security and shared values that had guided their transformation. As the flags of these nations fluttered alongside those of their Western counterparts, a new chapter began, one of unity, cooperation, and a shared commitment to a Europe whole, free, and at peace. The former adversaries of the Cold War had become allies, bound together by a common purpose and a shared vision for a more secure and prosperous future. The Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, which were part of the Soviet Union, also joined NATO in 2004. The 5 nations that round out NATO's 31 members are Slovenia, joined 2004, Croatia, 2009, Montenegro, 2017, North Macedonia, 2020, and Finland, 2023. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel.